to all of you?
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So, good morning to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank you for providing me this opportunity to present my talk in this faculty development program in Fundamental of Polymer Rheology and Soft Matter. I'm Dr. Swati Patel, Assistant Professor from Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Ropar, and today I am going to present the talk on the topic of rheology of complex fluids. So let me start my presentation. Okay. So let us start with the introducing the topic rheology to you. So if I'm able to show you the one sentence you are able to see on this slide, it basically convey the literal meaning of rheology. Rheology is a Greek word, and we can take the meaning of this Greek word such that rheo means flow and logos means study. But if I would like to more elaborate on this meaning of rheology, then let me take you to long back in 19th century, very early. So the word rheology was first invented in late 19th century in 1920 by Marcus Rainer and Eugene Bingham officially, and first time it was used in 1929 on 9th December when the first time the group of chemists, engineers and physicists met in Washington DC. So they called themselves Society of Rheology. So this at this time this term coined as a rheology in our scientists' world. So if you check the history of this rheology, then let me take you to still in 16th century, we are able to see that this history of rheology is very old. We can see that here the Pascal has started doing work in rheology in 1663. So this is the set of events in this table. We can see that starting from 1663. Let me take on the next page. Here I had shown you the recent inventions, discoveries in this field up to 1997. This is the current time. So there are more than 100 such events in between these two set of tables. And we are able to see that the name of all the big shots, what we are currently able to study because of them, very basic fundamentals in our science, Pascal, Hooke, Newton, Navier, Cauchy, Poisson, Hagen, Oiseley, Stokes. These are the big shots who have started working in rheology in very late, early centuries of this era. So let me introduce rheology more elaborately to you. So basically, what is rheology? As the director sir told that rheology is nothing but the science of deformation of material. It is the flow of material we are studying. Correct. Basically, it includes the theory underlying the deformation and practice of measurement. Basically, rheology is concerned with the question. What question? How does a material respond to a force? So let me show you one basic equation in words. What is it? Force. What is force? Force is nothing but the material property into measurement of response. So if I will elaborate this term more, then I can say that the scientist basically refers to these forces acting on the material, not in terms of force, but in terms of stress. What is stress? Stresses are force per area. On the other hand, when we are talking about this response, then how we can quantify? How we can quantify in terms of deformation, that is the strain or rate of strain. So let me show you this term more in detail. So when we are talking about pure shear, in any material, basically it is the fluid material, viscous material, at that time we can always observe the rate of deformation. But on the other hand, when we are talking about the material where you are applying normal stresses, we can always say the stresses are nothing but the strain. So when you are talking about shear strain, what exists in this kind of fluids, these are responsible for the change of the shape, which can encountered in our pipe flow. For example, flow in arteries in our body, blood flow. As this material flowing in form of layers slides one over another, and we are able to see that how this material is going to deform in terms of rate of shear. So here in this first figure, let me try to explain you more about this thing. So in this figure, we can see that the velocity profile in the gap between the two plates, one plate is stationary, that is the bottom plate, and top plate is moving with some constant velocity. That means we are applying some force to move this plate, and because of this thing, what we are able to see, we are able to see that when both the plates are stationary, our fluid element might be rectangle. But when we apply the force, when we make the movement of this plate, what we are able to see, the material will result into the shape of parallelogram, and this is the indication of the change in the shape. So if the material is flowing, then velocity gradient can be related to the rate of strain or rate of deformation. Correct. On the other hand, when we are talking about normal strain, which exists on this material, these are basically associated with the change in size due to the extension. Here we are able to see that the material having initial length as 0, when you are pulling this material, it will increase in the length, and you are able to see that the increase in the length. So in this case, the normal strain is given by the natural log of length, increasing length divided by the initial length. And also note that these strains have sign. Why? Because instead of pulling this load, if I am shrinking this material, then we are going to get negative shrinkage, right? So at this point, it is important to note that one thing. What is it? Our forces, our stresses have sense of direction. And how we can best illustrate this thing? As usual, by taking a 1 cubical volume of our material control volume, and we can see that in this volume we have each faces of the element forces acting in normal, which are going inward and outward, as well as forces acting on the surfaces that is tangential to them in all the faces. And since we know that there is always symmetry in stress tensor, we have such 9 components exist for the stress acting on this element. So believe me, this force is not a normal quantity. It is a tensorial quantity which make our life really difficult when we are talking about rheology. Now here, if I am talking about this basic equation, what I proposed, that is the force is equal to property into measurement of response, then this equation says a lot. How? Let me ask the question, whether my material is viscous or elastic, how I can able to identify. Okay, so now the key concept in rheology were developed by the scientists, which are two scientists. One is Isaac Newton and another one is Robert Hooke, who have proposed very basic fundamental law for the Newtonian fluid and for Hookean solids. So here Newtonian fluids basically follow the Newton's law that we all know. So here what Newton considered? Newton considered the flow of liquid along the pipe and determine what he determined, our shear stress is proportional to shear rate. Fine, so shear stress associated with the fluid sliding was proportional to the shear rate, and here we have shear stress is equal to eta into shear rate. What is this eta? Eta is basically measure of the fluid resistance to the flow, we call it viscosity. For Newtonian fluid, we are calling it Newtonian viscosity. And we will see more about this term, viscosity, later on. Because we are going to talk more about complex fluids, then we are going to elaborate this term more. Now, on the other hand, if we are talking about this solids, so basically Hooke considered the reversible deformation of the solids, where the material deform linearly until it reaches at some critical strain and stress. So the governing equation of Hooke's law relates this stress and strain by means of proportionality constant, that is G. Sorry, this is not eta. This should be G. It is a mistake. So it is G and it is nothing but the elastic modulus. So in case of elastic material, what we are able to see, they are immediately responding in terms of when strain, the moment you are applying strain, you are able to see that the material start deforming. But when we are talking about viscous liquid, how they respond? Basically, the response of viscous fluid is related to the rate at which it deforms. Fine. So when we are talking about rheology, so the field of rheology basically covers the behavior of perfectly viscous fluid, that is the Newtonian fluid, and perfectly elastic fluids, which are called the Hookean solids. So let me show you the one block diagram. Here we are able to see that on the one extreme we have rigid solid, which are basically called Euclidean solids, and these are the pure solids. Another thing is deformable solid. This deformable solids further divided into elastic solids and nonlinear solids. When we are talking about fluids, on the other hand, we have ideal liquid, we have viscous liquid, and this viscous fluids further divided into classical fluid and non-Newtonian fluids. So rheology is framed by ideal solid and ideal inviscid fluids, but these both are mathematically idealization of the fluids. Believe me, when we are talking about real material, most of the materials are neither ideal liquid, neither ideal fluid, neither ideal solid. But these materials can behave in between, showing the partly viscous behavior, partly elastic behavior. So actually the combination of this elastic and viscous behavior together is making our life really more complex, right? So in order to simplify in many cases and to handle the complex fluid phenomena, to make calculation and to make prediction possible for certain kind of problems, what we used to do mostly eliminate or neglect the terms which are less dominant in the flow. So here we can show the constitutive equation for extreme materials, which could be elastic, which could be viscous. But what I told you, okay, my real material will fall in between somewhere. These two behaviors, correct? So let me take you to the tour where you can see how this in between material could behave. They can show different kind of phenomena and just enjoy this non-Newtonian behavior. So perhaps the simplest example of this in between so-called material is silly putty. So as shown here, when this silly putty is dropped, it experiences a rapid deformation and bounce back like a rubber ball. We can see in figure 1 and figure 2, that is A and B. But if we left to sit it on the surface for several hours, what we are able to observe? The material will flow like a liquid. Correct? So here we can say that at short time under the stress effect, it behaves like a Hookean solid, but at long time Under the stress, it behaves like a liquid Newtonian fluid. Correct? Let us take the example of mayonnaise. We all people are aware of this kind of food products, what will be always included in our breakfast. So here we are able to see this material as again so-called in between material. How? When you keep this mayonnaise on the piece of your bread, so we can see there is a only effect of gravity exerted on this material, and we can see that it barely moves. It will sit there only. But when we sheared with the knife, that means we are applying high shear. What we are able to see that it will spread like a liquid. Correct? We all have this experience. In contrast, let me take the example of our honey. When we spread honey on the same piece of bread, what we are able to observe? First thing we are able to observe that while you are spreading this honey, it is giving you feeling more viscous compared to spreading mayonnaise. Correct? But when you observe this spreading of honey on the bread and you will keep as it is, you are able to see that it will run easily through the pores of the bread. Correct? So these are the different kinds of feel you can have when you are dealing with such kind of in-between material. Let us take one more phenomena, which is called the rod climbing effect. What is this? So I have one video. Let me play the video and let us see what is this phenomena. So here what we are able to see that when we are inserting this thread or rod in our Newtonian fluid, this could be water or oil. Then what we are able to see that because of inertial forces, this fluid move away from this rod while it is rotating. But when you are talking about this material, it seems like a polymer material to me. So let us call it polymer solution, and we can see that the fluid climbed the rod. So same phenomena we can also observe with the cake batter. When you are mixing with egg and you are stirring with some hand blender or something, you are able to see that this road climbing phenomena in our kitchen also. So we can think such materials, how they can behave like this. So let us think it as a rubber band. So when we are pulling our rubber band or stretching our rubber band, then what we are able to observe, they will pull back themselves towards the center. So here also, when we are stirring this polymeric material, what we are able to see that this material acts like a rubber band, and when we are applying this rotation, we are stretching it, they pull back in the direction of towards the rod, and this tension generates the pressure and the fluid will climb on the road. So this is called road climbing effect, which we frequently observe in most of the polymeric solution. What is next thing? This is called ductless zipper. So this is a equally dramatic phenomena similar to the previous. So here what we are able to see, let me play the video. So see, what is this? So we can see that some material can stretched out for the short time and it will behave like a solid. It will just pull, you can pull this material from the wicker. And you have experience of such kind when you trying to pull some adhesive which stick on your finger, and when you are pulling it, try to come up like this only with like a solid. Another phenomena what we observe, it is called dye swelling. So what is this? Let us see. So this is the polymeric solution of Polyox. and which we are extruding from the tube. So see how it is flowing. You are able to see that how it is flowing from the tip of the tube. So when this material is extruded from the die or orifice, it basically swells much larger in diameter than of the opening. You are able to see clearly. If I will play video more, you are able to see more, right? So in fact, such kind of behavior, we are able to see Newtonian fluids as well, honestly. But such kind of behavior we are able to see with Newtonian fluids at very high flow rate. On the other hand, when we are talking about such kind of in-between so-called material, such behavior at low flow rates, and if you are able to observe, and if you are increasing the flow rate more, then it swells up to 2 to 3 times of the whole diameter. Let me take you little bit more in this video. So this is actually water we are pulling out from the same tube. So you are able to see that it is coming very smoothly. So what is actually happening here? So you can visualize this phenomena as stretching of bundle of elastic threads out of the orifice or opening by the normal stress components applying on this material. So when you are pulling this bundle, all the elastic threads will pull out from the orifice, and they will emerge out the moment it will feel relaxed. So this relaxation causes the threads shorten in the length, hence the bundle increase in the diameter. So this is the actual thing happening when we are pushing this non-Newtonian so-called in-between material from the such kind of opening, or we can extrude from extruder. What is next for you? So this is called the liquid drop coil effect. So what is it? So we all are aware of honey, and when you have honey at your home and you are just pouring from one vessel to other vessel, you are able to see that such kind of very typical kind of pattern when it is flowing on the surface. So basically this kind of typical flow patterns we are able to see while we are pouring or falling this liquid on the horizontal surface. So you had seen such kind of same behavior when you have experience with shampoo, shaving cream, fine. So it is not new for you, but you never ask question why it happens, right? And finally, this is the last thing I really want to show you. The material like similar kind of Silly-Putty, when you are keeping on the vibrating surface, what we are able to experience. So see. So we are able to see that all this material is rising from the surface like a solid on the opposite direction to the gravity. And let me stop. So the moment you stop this vibration, what you are able to see that again they behave like a liquid, right? So this is also one kind of very natural phenomena with such kind of fluids we have experienced many times. So all these phenomena make us think about the behavior of fluid, how we can characterize such kind of behavior when they are falling in between elastic solid and viscous liquid, Newtonian liquid. So let us start to analyzing this behavior with very basic characteristic of our fluid when they are behaving like a Newtonian. So here we have again taken the same kind of image where we have flow of fluid between two parallel plates. One is stationary, another is moving with the constant velocity, and we can relate the shear stress with the shear rate by using the viscosity. Fine, which is the proportionality constant. Now, I told you we will discuss about this viscosity little bit more in this talk. So here, this is the point I want to describe this viscosity. So what is this viscosity? It is the characteristic of your material which completely describe the flow behavior of Newtonian fluid. So from this relation only where shear stress is proportional to shear rate, if I am plotting my plot of shear stress and shear rate data for different material, then what we are able to observe. So first I will just tell you what is this plot called. This plot called is basically rheogram or maybe flow curve for the fluid. So shear stress versus shear rate is called the flow curve for particular fluid. And here what I want to actually show you, this is the cooking oil and this is the corn syrup. When we are applying shear rate on this material, they will start flowing, and if we are able to measure shear stress data for each shear rate value, what we are able to see, these all data we are able to connect with the straight line passing through the origin. So if you are standing on the any value of the shear rate, you have corresponding shear stress value. And if you are standing on any value of any point of this flow curve, you are able to see that the slope is constant. So this is basically called viscosity. So the value of slope may depends on the type of material, but eventually what we are able to conclude here, for Newtonian fluids, our flow curves are linear on the shear stress shear rate plot, and they are passing through the origin. Let us see the values of this substance, what we are facing every day, what we are feeling every day, what are the typical viscosity value. So air, water, olive oil, castor oil, honey, all these materials we have experienced in our everyday life. And you are able to see that the viscosity will vary from 10 to the power minus 2 to the order of 10 to the power 15. But this molten glass has 10 to the power 15 very high viscosity, but it falls under Newtonian category. Why? Whatever shear rate you are going to apply, its viscosity will remain constant. It is not going to change. So viscosity, high viscosity doesn't mean that it is not Newtonian fluid. It might be Newtonian fluid. Correct? Now I will show you another table. There are a lot of products in our list. Fine. And you are able to see that these are very ordinary products. Many products. Fine. Foams, creams, then your chocolate, then your different kind of adhesives you are using to stick material, our blood, different kind of food products. So if you see the list of this material, believe me, these are not Newtonian material. So we have equally long list of material which are not fall under the category of this. Showing you the curves of different material. So shear stress versus shear rate data, and you are now able to understand that this line 1 is Newtonian fluid because it has a straight linear relation between shear stress shear rate and passing through the origin. But what about this line 2? See, on line 2, if I will move at any point and if I will draw the slope, that is shear stress versus shear rate, my slope is changing as I'm moving on this curve. So that means this is the material, if I am applying the shear rate, its viscosity is no more constant. It is going to change. So here we had shown the viscosity versus shear rate data for the same kind of flow curves. You are able to convince with me, okay, this 2 is the material. If I am applying the shear rate, its viscosity is decreases. Another flow curves we have shown here. So these two lines are also not Newtonian. They are not Newtonian because they are, even though this is the straight line, it is not passing to the origin. It is passing to somewhere on the shear stress value. So this, even though having linear relation between shear stress, only I want to tell you, if you have such kind of variety of materials, we can still able to keep this behavior into three general categories. First one is called time independent material, which are purely viscous. We don't have any elastic component in that material. So another name we can give it generalized Newtonian fluids, but they are not Newtonian. Okay. And such kind of materials basically have the rate of shear stress at any point is determined only by the value of shear stress. Another category is the time dependent fluids. So in this category, what kind of fluids basically fall? So these are the more complex fluids compared to our time independent fluids. Here one more component will add up along with this time independent behavior, and basically such kind of materials behavior depends upon the duration of shearing. How long you are shearing this material, based on that it will behave. And third category, that is viscoelastic fluids. Such kind of material exhibit characteristic of both ideal liquid and elastic solids and showing partial elastic recovery after deformation. So these are the broadly three general classes for non-Newtonian fluids. We will visit each category one by one. Just be with me because we have really some interesting thing when we are dealing with all this kind of material. And when we are talking about our reality, so in reality, the material can show the combination of any three of this behavior or features. So in general, we identify what we do. We cannot get any time independent fluid not having time dependency, not having viscoelastic behavior. It could have presence of time dependency, it could have little bit effect of elasticity, but we have to identify what feature is dominating. That feature will represent the type of material, and we can take the characteristic of that behavior for the subsequent process calculation for our particular fluid. So let us start with time independent fluid first. So these are the time independent fluid behavior, and what I told you, same thing I have mentioned here. Here we can say that this fluid basically have constitutive relations between shear stress and shear rate. So in general, for such kind of material, we can relate the shear rate with shear stress in particular form. And these are the types of time independent fluids. The behavior of these three materials we can correlate in this format, where stress will be the function of rate will be the function of stress, or stress will be the function of shear rate. Let us visit these three types of time independent fluids one by one, and just be with me because we have something interesting at the end of this three topics discussion. So what is shear thinning? So this word itself describes the fluid. So whenever you are applying shear, your fluid will become thin. That means viscosity will decrease. Correct? So this kind of basically characterized by the decreasing viscosity over the range of increasing shear rate. So we have plotted shear stress and shear rate for our shear thinning fluids, and we have both the axes in log scale. So we are able to see that when we are plotting our shear stress shear rate data for shear thinning fluid, what we can see, it is a straight line. Fine. And when you are observing the viscosity, so this is my viscosity model, and this is the line of viscosity, and as I am increasing the shear rate, my viscosity is also dropping. So here we can approximate the behavior of this shear thinning by just with this linear relation between shear stress and shear rate. Correct? So here apparent viscosity versus shear rate plot is there. And let me write down this relation, shear stress and shear rate, mathematically. So first mathematical relation for this straight line I can propose as a power law model. So this is the simplest model, power law model, which can describe the shear thinning fluid. So here, how we are observing this material, the moment you are applying shear stress, shear rate, your material will follow this power law behavior. And here this M and N are the fitting constant. The moment you will fit the data of viscosity and shear rate or shear rate and shear stress, you are able to get these fitting constants. And for shear thinning fluids, you have to remember this N value is always less than 1. Another model, yes, another one important point I just forgot to describe. Here, we cannot fit our power law model at the lowest range of shear rate and highest range of shear rate. So at very low range of shear rate and at very high range of shear rate, basically it behaves like a Newtonian fluid. So this model is basically applicable over the limited range of shear rate data. We have another model which is called Kara model. Here what we are doing, we have two limiting conditions for viscosity, that is the zero shear rate viscosity at the in the regime of very low shear rate, and we have very high viscosity at the in the regime of high shear rate. If you know all these two quantities, then you are able to correlate your shear rate and shear apparent viscosity and shear rate data using this Karau model. Again, you have two fitting constant, lambda and n. So here we have compared this power law model and this Karau model. You are able to see that it is pretty much going to fit this low range data and high range data using this Karau model, but power law model is not able to predict this data. The symbols are the experimental data, right? So it is not able to cover this range, but in this range you are able to see that both models have almost similar kind of fitting. Other kind of models are also there which can be used to correlate this shear rate, shear stress data for shear thinning behavior. So model is Cross model and another one is Alice model. So here Cross model is very similar to the Karau model, but it is in the inverse kind of notation. While in Alice model, we have little bit different formation where we have only mu zero, which is the zero shear rate viscosity in the low shear rate regime. We have alpha. This is the measure of the degree of shear thinning for shear thickening material. And what is tau 1/2? Tau 1/2 is the value of shear stress at which your viscosity basically drop to the half of the zero shear viscosity. So these models are pretty easy to fit in the data. If you have some material, if you are able to collect the data of shear stress and shear rate anyhow using rheometer, then you are always able to predict whether your material is shear thinning or not. Correct? Now, here we have shown the examples of the shear thinning material where we have both the fitting constants and we are able to see that all these are the polymeric material. Correct? And you are, if you want to do more exercise, then we are able to fit different kind of other model for the same data we are able to figure out which model is more suitable for our material. Now coming to the another category, that is the viscoplastic fluid under the category of time independent fluid. So what is this viscoplastic material? So these are the fluids which show the resistance to the flow till it will overcome some critical value of the shear stress called the yield stress. So here we have, I am just trying to explain you the shear stress shear rate data for the viscoplastic material, meat extract and carbohydrate solution. So here you are able to see that if you are applying shear stress, then it is not moving, it is not moving, it is not moving up to certain value, and the moment it will cross this shear stress value, it will start flowing. So this is what? This is shear rate. It is nothing but the rate of deformation. Fine. So here it will start flowing. And once it will start flowing, you are able to see that you are able to connect all this data with the straight line. On the other hand, when you are talking about this carbopol solution, then you are able to see that it is only able to flow once it will exceed the stress value 68 Pascal, but it is not linearly behaving. It will give you non-linear behavior. Correct. So such kind of flow you have observed in your day-to-day life. First example I really would like to give you, that is your toothpaste. The moment you are pressing from your paste, your toothpaste will come like a rod. Then you will apply on your brush. It will stay there. It is not flowing at all. So still it is below the critical value of the stress, what it required to flow. The moment you apply your toothpaste on your teeth and you are start rubbing, you are applying stress, what you are able to see that it will become liquid like a water. Correct. So toothpaste is the example of such kind of behavior. So we are engineer, we are chemist, we are pharmacist. So we are always trying to get the mathematical model for such kind of behavior. So first simplest model we can have for such kind of behavior is the Bingham plastic model. So just don't confuse with this notation. It is very simple to understand if you thoroughly understand this image. It says that when your stress value is below certain critical value, your shear rate is 0. So when you are moving on the stress axis, and until and unless you are not exceeding this value, your stress will remain 0. So this is like a no flow. It is moving like a plug, like your toothpaste, how it is moving out, coming out from the opening of your paste, but it is not showing any deformation, no velocity gradient. But once it will overcome this critical value, it will start flowing like Newtonian fluid. Correct? So easy to understand. And same way, if we are able to model our this behavior, then we have another type of model which will take care of this non-linearity. It is the Hertzberg model, where your this term will basically appear as a power law model having two parameters, and it is like in power law form. Another model also proposed in literature, which is the Casson fluid model, and this kind of model we can fit to our blood. Basically, blood can be characterized as a Casson fluid model many times by researcher. So this is the Casson model. But the beauty of this material is what? They have yield stress. So we are calling this critical value yield stress. And the example of these materials are toothpaste, ketchup, paint, mayonnaise, chocolate, even your natural flow of lava, avalanche, mud flow, all these materials we can model using the viscoplastic fluids because they have inherent some resistance to flow till up to certain stress value. Now, third category is the shear thinning category under the time independent behavior. So the name we have mentioned here, shear thinning. So as you increase the shear rate, what we are able to see that on this flow curve, if we are drawing the tangent, then the slope of the tangent is increased. Correct. So they are called shear thinning fluid. That means its viscosity is increasing. Fine. So how this material can show the increase in viscosity? Let we little bit elaborate on it. So basically, what are these shear thickening materials? Shear thickening materials are material having very high concentration of some suspension in the fluid. So mostly concentrated suspensions behaves like a shear thickening fluid. The possible reason for such kind of behavior might be when the fluid is at rest. When the fluid is at rest, what we are able to see that the voidage between the particles are minimum. So liquid is sufficient to fill all this void space, and we are applying low shear rate to such kind of material. Then what happened? This liquid present in the voidage basically lubricate the motion of each particle for small movement, so resulting into low shear rate. Okay, this is at low shear rate. But when you are applying high shear rate, then what happened? This material expands slightly. So there is a no longer liquid present to fill the void space entirely between all the particle space to prevent the direct solid-solid contact. So when you are applying high shear rate, it results into friction and increase in the shear stress. So such behavior is observed very less in industries. But however, systems which are loaded with the high solid concentration show such kind of behavior. And what are the examples? Examples are starch, china clay, then corn flour in water, titanium oxide. So all this material can model using the shear thickening fluid. So let us do small exercise. What are the applications of all these models what we have seen in our presentation? So basically, if somebody has some data of shear stress and shear rate for particular material, and if that person is interested in knowing whether my material is shear thinning, shear thickening, or maybe it has a yield stress, then how you are able to analyze this thing? So we have models, so we can see that life is very easy. But no, you should have some insight regarding your data. So let me plot our shear stress and shear rate on the log scale. So ideally, if it is a power law model, then what we can see, all the data should fall on the same linear correlation, right? But here we are not able to see like that. So when you have such kind of data, what you have to ask yourself? First, you have to plot on the shear stress, shear rate plot graph, and then you have to see whether it is fall under linear curve pattern or not on the log coordinate. No, it is not falling, but still we are able to analyze this data. If we are able to split the range of shear rate, then we can fit two different power law behavior over the range of shear rate for the same material. We cannot fit all the data using one model, but over the shear rate, you can always say that my material has such kind of characteristic, but once it will come into this range of shear rate, it will behave like this. We have also shown the Alice model fit, and it is reasonably okay. So these are the information you can always get when you will use your models. Now, if I will give you this set of data, and if I will ask you, okay, you just check whether any kind of model is going to fit in this data or how. So I have plotted my data on the linear scale. I'm not using log scale. On the linear scale, when I'm plotting, what I'm able to observe, I'm able to observe that this flow curve is not passing through the origin, first of all. Top of that thing, it is not linear at all. So what I can do, I can fit different models and I'm able to find and trying to see what is the sum of residual, what is the fit of this model to my data. So here when I'm plotting power law, I'm able to see that this fit is not pretty good. Bingham plastic, which correlate the data as a straight line having some intercept, but it is disaster. We are not able to see fit of Bingham plastic model to this data at all. Let us use Cashin model. Cashin model also has some 3 parameters, but if the moment you are fixing one more parameter in this Cashin model, only you have 2 parameters which are free to fit. And again, we are able to see that this Cashin model is also not fitted to the data. And finally, when you are trying to fit your Herschel-Berkeley model, you are able to see that it is pretty nicely fit to your data. So what I did, I same data on the log scale using Herschel-Berkeley model, and I have plotted my data with this straight line, and it says that okay, even in log scale also I'm able to see the pretty good fitting. So it is like you have to do trial and error using all the models. No data will clear cut tell you this is the type of material. You should have your own insight regarding material, even over the what range of shear rate you are collecting the data. That is also important. Now coming to the next category, we have finished our time independent fluid behavior. Now another category is time dependent. So in time dependent fluid behavior, as the name suggests, our fluid has a dependency on time, but what time? How much you are experienced your material with shear. So here we have 2 type of materials which we can consider as a time dependent fluid. First one is thixotropic, another one is rheopactic. So in thixotropic, what we can say for thixotropic material, the moment you are applying shear rate, the viscosity will increase with the time. Sorry, viscosity will decrease with the time. So when you want to see whether your material is time dependent or not, you have to conduct a very simple experiment. What you have to do? You have to apply the shear rate to the material steadily from 0 to some maximum value. And then again you have to, in same experiment, you have to bring back the shear from maximum to 0 value with the same rate. So if your material has time dependency, then what you are able to see that your increase in this viscosity, decrease in this viscosity will not going to be followed when you are reversing the experiment. Correct? And we are able to see that there is a gap in between this curve. So it is called hysteresis loop. And larger the hysteresis loop for material, it has larger the time dependency. In rheopactic fluid, what we are able to see that in rheopactic fluid, as the shear rate increases, the viscosity also increases, but it has completely reversed hysteresis loop compared to the So why such kind of behavior we are observing? So this is the example of cement paste, which has a thixotropic behavior, and these are the real data with the shear rate. You are able to see that this path is not followed by the reverse experiment. But in time independent case, if you increase the shear rate and if you decrease the shear rate, they are follow the same path. Fine. So why such kind of behavior we are observing? So such behavior basically results due to the breakdown and reform of the internal structure of the material. And examples of thixotropic fluids are cement paste, bentonite clay, drilling fluids, and foodstuff. Different kind of foodstuff. While rheopactic fluids, we can say this cold water slurry, different kind of protein solutions, gypsum pastes, these all are fall under the rheopactic fluid where you are applying the shear rate. Over the period of time, this viscosity will increase. Now coming to the last category, that is the viscoelastic fluid behavior. So we have seen that what is the Hooke's law. So from the classical theory of elasticity, Hooke's law says that for an elastic solid, shear stress is proportional to shear stress is proportional to strain. Here, what is dx upon dy? Dx upon dy is the shear displacement between the two elements separated by the distance dy. What is g? G is the elastic modulus. So when we have perfect solid and it deformed elastically, for perfect solid, we can always say that it regained original form on removal of the shear stress. So this is the characteristic of your ideal solid, what Hooke's law says. But in reality, when we are applying shear stress to any solid, if this shear rate will exceed its original characteristic yield stress of that material, then we are not able to see the complete recovery of this behavior, and we are able to see that there is a creep happen. So that means your material, your solid will have flowed. Your solid will have flowed. So we are not able to see complete recovery, but your material has deformed permanently with something. So many materials of practical interest exhibit viscoelastic behavior, and they have some ability to store and recover the shear energy. So let us take this schematic where we are able to see that viscous, liquid, and elastic solid. So in case of fluid, what we are able to say, basically in fluid, the flow persists as long as the stress is applied. So if your fluid is here and if you are applying stress in this direction, as long as you are applying the stress, your fluid will continue to deform and it will flow. In contrast, what happened with your solid? So when you are applying stress, then it results into instantaneous deformation. And once it deformed, it reached at some deformed stage, then there is a no further movement, and deformed state persists as long as the stress is applied to your elastic solid material. So here energy is recoverable little bit, but here we are able to see that energy dissipates in form of heat. So in general, the behavior of fluid we can represent using the Newton's law, and here we have represented by the desktop. Fine. And where your stress is related to rate of deformation, that is the shear rate. And when we want to model solid, then this is the spring, and here your shear stress is proportional to strain directly. So deformation is there, here rate of deformation. So spring represents solid, your dashpot represent viscous liquid. So these are the extreme conditions what Hooke and Newtonian has given in this equations. Elastic. So here we have dashpot and spring in series. So this is representing viscous behavior, this is representing elastic behavior, and we are applying this stress to our whole system. So stress is acting same way on the both system. But when you are applying stress, we are able to see the rate of change of strain in viscous fluid, and we are able to see that the strain in elastic fluids. So here, if you are counting the strain rate, that is the rate of deformation, then it will be summation of both the elements. So based on these two observations, where in first observation, the stress acting same way on the both element, and rate of deformation will be the summation of both the component, acting in both the component. So based on these two observations, the constitutive model we can propose what Maxwell has proposed. So in this model, basically linear differential form of our all the quantities we are able to see, and we are able to see one more new quantity lambda, which is called the time of relaxation. And basically this is the ratio of the modulus of elasticity to the viscosity, and it is the characteristic of fluid. So however we are studying of material, we need to consider not only the relaxation time, but we have to consider the time scale of the process to which material is subjected to such kind of particular changes. So time scale is important, particularly if you want to segregate your material either solid, liquid or viscoelastic. So when we are talking about scale of the process, time scale of the process, then what is it? The residence time of the material inside, suppose extrusion die. When we are talking about this relaxation time, that means how fast or slow the material is deformed. So there is a dimensionless number which is called de Broglie number. This is the ratio of two entity. First one is the relaxation time and another one is the time scale of the process. And this will tells you, this will tell you how your material will behave. When de Broglie number is 0, that means your relaxation time, that is elastic effect, is completely absent. Your material will be completely viscous. When your process time scale is too small, then your material will behave like elastic solid. Yes, elastic effect is significant. So what is this de Broglie number? Basically, this name has been chosen after the song of one singer that is called Song of Deborah, who state that the Deborah number will tell many things, and this example also clarify many things. So when we are speaking the mountains flows before the Lord, we are really talking about the time scale, because mountain also flows, but we are not able to see as a human being. It is over the eternal period of time. The time scale is very large. So only the Almighty can observe such kind of changes happening on the earth. So here also we are able to see the similar kind of features where your material has more elastic behavior or material has more viscous behavior, or it has basically comparable behavior along with it. Now, let me briefly tell you about the influence of microstructure on rheological behavior of fluids. Ultimately, your fluids, which are counted as non-Newtonian complex fluids, they have really complex microstructure, right? They are suspension, they are form, form kind of material. They are different kind of polymeric chain material, different emulsions. So we are always curious about how the structure of material influence the rheology, correct? So undoubtedly, we can say that this is the strong link between the flow behavior and the response of the structure to the applied shear stress. And therefore, it is possible to synthesize the material of desired rheological characteristics by manipulating its structure using the range of additives. So we have kept here the image of paint. So if you want to see the paint as a consumer, how you are able to see your product. So what could be the ideal paint? So let us define. It should be soft solid in the container and that become very viscous the moment I will start stirring. Also I will apply on the wall. It has go smoothly. It has a quick response to minimize the tendency for running of a vertical surface. So how all these qualities of material we are able to achieve in one product itself? So we can achieve by manipulating the inner particle forces responsible for the structure of the system and what people are doing in studying rheology. Fine. So let us take one more example of our chocolate, what we are eating every day, right? Most of the time. So here you are able to see that viscosity and shear stress value. So at low shear stress, your chocolate is having very high viscosity. Fine. So it should be stable. As shear rate increases, your material will start behaving like shear thinning and shear thickening. But you are able to see that at all stage of this changes, its structure is changing reasonably. For example, solid like network, we have at low shear stress and high shear rate, it has different kind of structure. When you are increasing the shear rate, then or you are you are decreasing the shear stress, you are able to see that shear induced deformation, orientation might be changed, agglomeration might be broken. So all this kind of structure we are able to observe. So these are the different kind of characteristics mostly we are able to see in microstructure. And if you see the different kind of orientations of particles in the fluid, basically we have a dispersion which is having different kind of processes and they are changing orientation in the flow. When it is rest, it has different kind of orientation, but while you stretch, you are able to see that all the elements are stretching in one direction. Such kind of suspended particles, when you are applying some stress or such kind of bubbles, if you are applying some stress, then they are deforming. When you have such kind of agglomerates and you are applying stress, they are disintegrating and they are becoming suspended in the particle. So all this microstructural behavior basically converts the role by basically changes the facilitate bulk flow in the system. So all these conditions are bulk flow, correct? Similarly here also, if you have long chain polymer, at rest they are entangled. But when you are shearing, they all are aligned in one direction, and then they are facilitate the flow motion of your material. So in the final slide, I just want to list out the components of rheological research, which basically people try to see during the research. First one is rheometry. What is it? It is the study of your material by analyzing shear stress, shear rate behavior. How? Using different kind of rheometers. I think you have one talk on rheometry itself, but it is important in quality and process control. That is what I want to tell you. Constitutive equations, what we have seen for our different kind of time dependent, time independent, viscoelastic fluids. These are the rheological equations of state, and people are always interested to see the characteristic of your material by fitting these constitutive equations. And complex flows. People are always talking about complex flows in rheological research. So why complex flows? Because it arises due to the coexistence of shear and extensional components of the fluid, what we have seen in different examples by video and different kind of images. Also, if you have complex geometry, complex configuration, it will create the complex flow pattern. So people are always interested in studying all these components as a part of your rheological research. Finally, I talk a lot about non-Newtonian characteristics of materials. But believe me, all these characteristics are tailor-made for those products. And because of that, we are able to see the usage of this material very conveniently in our life. You can see toothpaste I described, right? What is its characteristic? Bingham plastic. But what you want, it should stay on the brush. It behaves more liquid-like while brushing. Another example, let me take as a printing ink. What is it? Pseudoplastic, that is the shear thinning. Why? It could be because spread easily in high-speed machines, yet do not run excessively at low speeds. So all these materials have properties, fine, resulting because of our rheological research, and because of that research and because of that analysis, we are able to get the tailor-made product having very uh, useful, user-friendly characteristic. And this is the last table what I wanted to show you, because we are talking a lot about shear rates, and you are able to see here what are the shear range of shear rates in our day-to-day different kind of applications. And you can see that the range of shear rate on which you have to collect your data, this is like very small, -6 to -4, if you want to study the sedimentation of fine particles in liquid. So this range is very crucial and you need to study in this range. If on the other extreme, if you have lubrication where range of shear rate is very broad but at very high shear rate. So we have to collect all this data using some instrument which is called rheometer, and none of the rheometer will cover the whole range, believe me. So you have to have knowledge about this instrument, at what level, what kind of instrument is usable for your application, for your study. So with this concluding slide, I just want to show you the references, what I have used for this presentation. And I just want to thank you to all of you listening my presentation.
Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am, for a very nice overview on basics of rheology with different kind of examples, providing let's say from basic to the model, how we can use the models or which models are important. So it's a simple overview. I would like to tell all the participants that we are going to cover this course. So maybe there will be some common points. Those will be discussed by each and every participant. And at that level, you can ask your specific question. Ma'am, we have some questions for you. Okay. So we'll discuss that. Someone.
Shall I minimize my screen so I'm able to see the other screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me. Okay, I'm just. I don't know how to do. Anyway. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah. So someone is asking, which are the various parameters of rheology affecting on pharmaceutical cream product formulation? No.
Yeah, very good question. And if question is finished, shall I answer?
Yeah.
So this is the question, right?
Yeah.
So basically, when you people are dealing with a pharmaceutical cream,
yeah,
I believe that this cream should have certain should have meet certain prototype behavior what you people are following during your manufacturing, as far as I know, because I also have in contact with pharmaceutical people who are trying to analyze their creams rheological characteristics. So basically when you are talking about cream, what I had observed, mostly we are able to see this material under the category of viscoplastic fluids. So these are the parameters what you have to observe. But my one important suggestion at this point, when you are talking about viscoplastic fluids, that means it has some yield stress value. And when you want to fit the model to your data, whatever you have collected for shear stress and shear rate, you need to identify first what is the exact yield stress using certain technique particularly meant for identifying the yield stress value. I believe one methodology is called Venn method is there. Another method is pendulum method. This method can easily give you the exact yield stress value. Once you have identify, okay, my material has some reasonable yield stress value, then you are able to identify what are the viscoplastic material model you are able to fit to your pharmaceutical cream. So did I answer the query, or should I explain? Should they need more explanation?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. Vipil Kumar Prajapati ji has asked this question.
Uh-huh.
So, did ma'am answer your question, Vipil Kumar ji? Okay. He's saying yes.
Uh-huh.
So the
Okay.
next question is, which model will be suitable for nutraceuticals evaluation? Rheology in nutraceuticals.
Actually, honestly, I'm not aware of this term. Can you elaborate, please, little bit more? Whoever is asking this question.
Yeah, Miss Nilima Thomre, Dr. Nilima Thomre is asking
Madam,
this.
yes, madam, sure.
Yeah.
Basically, what is happening when we are developing any nutraceutical formulations in our laboratory? We are developing certain types of the formulations, like some nutraceutical liquids, some nutraceutical creams, or some types of the lotions, or we are developing some types of the semi-solid chocolates, or any jelly jams like this formulation. So, what problem we are facing that as it is a nutraceutical, so we are adding some original components or natural components in our formulation, and
Okay.
there we found that initially at the trial batches we are getting good type of the stability, but as soon as we are keeping these formulations for shelf life determination, we are getting some type of the phase separations. So the temporarily in laboratory scale we are getting good type of the stability, but when we are keeping it for longer period of time we are getting some phase separation. So how to determine that my this laboratory scale will be suitable for the shelf life? In that sense I want to ask this question, that what types of the models we can apply practically, which will be means when we are studying for the technology transfer, so that time it will be much more convenient for us for the to convey this message to our students also.
Yes. So what I believe, actually, whatever models I discussed, these models are mostly applicable to fluids and viscoelastic materials. But when you are talking about phase separation, this model doesn't have that much caliber to identify such kind of characteristics or such kind of phenomena happening at certain molecular scale, right? So what I believe, this phase separation is basically, I'm not much aware because it is not in my scope of research. But yes, if you would like to elaborate on this question more, I am able to identify the suitable person who will help you to identify the answer, because mostly we people are dealing with the material what are basically in a different kind of stage, but we are not able to do our work at the on the different time scale. Honestly telling you, when you are talking about the self life, then you
Yeah,
need to
sure.
have some different kind of, I guess, maybe models what can help you in this regard. But if you want, you can just drop email to me. We
Yeah,
will
yeah,
have
sure.
contact with a few people, so they can definitely help you in this regard.
Okay, no
I want
problem,
to
ma'am.
add to this, ma'am, Nilima
Mhm.
ma'am. There will be a
Yes,
lecture
sir.
from Dr. Dhananjay Zope and
Okay,
Dr. Sandeep Kothawade on
okay,
Friday and Saturday. They are
okay,
specifically from adhesive and what we can say that cream bag or emulsion backgrounds, and they are
okay, okay,
industry working professionals. So
okay.
just keep this question ready for them.
Okay,
They
no
may
problem, sir.
answer this question.
Okay, sir,
Okay?
definitely.
Yeah.
No problem, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you.
Next question is from Ashutosh Bagde sir. He's asking how mathematical modeling is affecting shear affect the shape fidelity of material.
You mean to say,
Yeah, Ashutosh Bagde sir, if you are there,
shape?
you can ask your question.
Yeah, can you please elaborate little bit more?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah,
I am basically.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. I am basically. I am audible now.
yeah, yeah. You are audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Ma'am, I am basically asking for the shear thickening property and mathematical models suitable for shear thickening,
Uh-huh.
and how that shear thickening will affect the shape fidelity of material, especially in field of bioprinting. We need to evaluate a rheological property.
Mm-hmm.
Means in my doctorate work, I worked on bioprinting
Mm-hmm.
part, but I just keep this rheology study it more. So that's why I'm asking how shear thickening will affect on shape fidelity and what is the best mathematical model for that.
So,
Could you
if
suggest
you are
something?
talking about shear thickening fluids, if you are able to, are you
Hmm.
able to see my screen? My screen is visible to you people. So I
Yeah.
just want to go to that slide. Okay. So, okay, let me go here. So this is your power law model, basically. Any kind of shear thinning model where you are able to see this power law index n. Even in this model, we have just written different way in terms of viscosity, but you are able to see that this n value. So n value is nothing but the power law index. Here m is the consistency index. So when this n is equal to 1, your all model, most of the models will fall as a in category of Newtonian fluid. When n is less than 1, then it give you shear thinning. But when n is greater than 1, it will give you shear thickening. So all these models, I believe they are applicable to your shear thickening behavior. You can have try with that material, because ultimately, if your material is shear thickening, when you are going to fit such kind of models, and evolved as a value greater than 1 naturally, because it is
Yeah.
inherent characteristic. See, it has to follow such kind of curve, flow curves, where viscosity is increasing, right? So if you will plot like this, and if you fit your model, you are able to see that it has n value obviously greater than 1. So I guess that way you are able to make preliminary model for your shear thickening fluids.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah. Next question is from Mukund Srivastavji. He's asking for time dependent material. How to characterize a material if we are not able to attain the relaxation time scales of the material in our experimental setup. Dr. Mukund, can you elaborate on this question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a material, viscoelastic material. I have seen through the. Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you are very much
Yeah.
audible.
So I have seen through the experiments in a certain condition, the viscoelastic material was experiencing a certain rate of flooding. Now I want to understand that what was the viscoelastic response of that material under that loading rate. So now when I'm doing the rheological experiments or some other experiments to find the viscoelastic property, so
Mhm.
I need to apply the same loading rate at which the material was the one which the material was experiencing there, but I'm unable to do that because of the experiments constraints. So the loading rate that the material was experiencing in the original condition that I want to mimic, I'm unable to do that. So how can I characterize the material?
So what I understood from your question, you have viscoelastic
Yeah,
material, right? And you want to understand the time dependency of that material?
yeah. So I want to characterize the behavior of that material uh, like I was uh, trying to use the Prony series to characterize the material.
Mhm.
Now the issue was that the condition where the viscoelastic material was kept and where the loading rate was imposed, there the loading rate was very small. And now when I want to characterize the viscoelastic behavior of that material, uh, because viscoelasticity is time dependent and loading rate dependent, so
Mhm.
ideally should I match that loading rate which was there in the original condition?
Mhm.
And because if I'm not able to match that loading rate condition, then how can I characterize the material?
In terms of viscoelastic material, I don't have that much idea. Really sorry because I am
Yeah.
really not able to get it.
Can I add? Can I suggest something to Mukund?
Yeah,
Sure,
of
sure.
Yeah,
course.
Dr. Mukundji, there will be one lecture from the application specialist from Anton Park. Specifically, they are dealing with all these experimental setup and how to characterize a material, viscoelastic material. So I think he can put on Thursday morning. We have him with us. So just keep this question for him. I will just suggest you that just ask
Sure,
this
sure.
question to Dr. Kapil Joshi, who will be delivering on Thursday morning. He will just elaborate on this question. Is it okay,
Sure,
Mukunji?
sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
the thing is
absolutely
that
fine.
I think Dr. Swati Patel is working on numerical simulations of all these non-Newtonian fluids. Her working
No,
area is
but my
yeah, yeah,
basically I'm falling in generalized Newtonian fluids, not
yeah,
in viscoelastic fluids.
viscoelastic
So
fluids.
mostly,
So I will suggest
yeah.
you that
So,
just keep this
but
question of viscoelasticity for uh, Dr. Kapil Joshi. Is it okay?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. Thank
yeah.
you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last question is, how about rheology of smart materials, ma'am? Hello.
smart materials in a way,
Yeah,
Am I audible?
yeah. I think Dr. Manikandan,
Yeah.
will you please elaborate on this question?
Actually, I'm Manikandan. I'm
Yeah.
currently pursuing my PhD in smart materials, additive manufacturing of smart materials.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using inkjet process actually. So in that, I need to model the droplet formation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning to do a numerical simulation using a flow science 3D software.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
So I
But
need to understand, I am modeling it as a Newtonian fluid only,
mm-hmm.
wherein I got the, viscosity values using a rheometer.
Okay.
But due to some difficulty, currently I'm not able to get the surface tension and contact angle values.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just give me a, hint on how to measure these two and what are the different numericals? Is it possible to do in modeling software, 3D modeling software? I mean, not modeling, simulation software like flow science, 3D.
Basically, what I understood when you are talking about smart materials,
Okay.
so you should have how you are defining your smart materials, because see, when you are talking Newtonian, then it is very simple to understand. Okay,
Okay.
this is our constitutive. Basically, all this model what we have seen, they are called constitutive relations, which represents the type of your material.
Okay.
So when you are talking about your droplet as a Newtonian fluid, that means you
Okay.
are considering very simple material and you are doing your modeling. And I'm not aware of what kind of models you are following particularly,
Okay.
but this constitutive relation plays very important role when you have similar kind of example. For example, if you have pipe flow, you are flowing your Newtonian fluid, you are going to get velocity profile for your Newtonian fluid. But if you change the constitutive equation for power law fluid, then your velocity profile definitely will change. It will give you according to that. So what my suggestion is, when you are talking about smart material, because now if I, as far as my knowledge is there, in rheology people are working in electromagnetic material and a different kind of material having magnetic properties, fine.
Okay.
So they are calling this material smart material because they are
Yes.
modifying
Yes.
with
Uh, Sorry to interrupt. My material is like UV curable material. So.
it is UV curable material, but you should have at least some type of material. What is it? For example, you told me Newtonian. You
Yes.
should have certain constitutive equation which fits your material's property. Then try to see what
Okay.
kind of basic model fit.
Okay. Okay.
And then I don't know what modeling you are doing for droplet. Are you using
Uh,
some multi-phase? What you are using?
uh, Multi-phase simulation only, no? But actually the simulation is like micro droplet formation actually. So I need to study the droplet formation, whether a perfect bubble is forming from the injet.
So this is like some channel or capillary
Yeah,
where you are
channel flow, channel flow.
channel flow, and you are
Yeah.
just make inserting your this fluid as a some the bubble or droplet, and you want to see how this bubble is going to flow in
Yes.
this
Yes.
capillary,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think people have done this kind of work in I guess microfluidics also. They have done a lot of things.
Oh.
Your device is micro size or
Yeah, micro size.
micro size,
Uh,
right? So it is there, it is well established thing, and only you have to identify if you want to validate your own experimental results with model, then please try to identify what kind of constitutive relations your material follows.
okay.
It will be very big help for your validation, I believe.
Sure. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
welcome.
So I think, ma'am, you have answered all these questions and given a very nice presentation. On behalf of organizing committee, I would like to present my sincere thanks to you. Ma'am is going to deliver another talk tomorrow afternoon also. That will be on numerical
Numerical
simulation of
simulation.
non-Newtonian fluids. So
Yeah.
with this, I will thank you, ma'am. I'm just present my thank you. There is one more question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, from Vinod Kumar Nigam.
Mm-hmm.
Will you please elaborate your question, sir? Hello,
Uh-huh.
Dr. Nigam. We have developed. He is asking. We have developed jelly from custard apple. Can you suggest whether it will be
Okay.
Newtonian or non-Newtonian? Trying to
If
get
you
the
have gel,
viscosity. Yeah,
yeah.
he's trying to get the viscosity data from other institute. No data of shear stress.
Okay.
Uh, Data of shear stress. And will you please elaborate, Dr. Nigam? Just unmute.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, myself,
Yeah.
Vinod Nigam.
Yeah.
We have jelly from custard apple,
Mhm.
and right now we are not able to find out the viscosity data
Mhm.
as due to lockdown or something else. So I just want to know whether it will be behaving in Newtonian one or non-Newtonian one, based on your experience.
Yeah, based on my experience, you have to have certain basic observation regarding your material, and when you have certain understanding of the different types of material, you can easily correlate the behavior of material with a different kind of material, just looking some visual way or observation. So what kind of material you can observe your jelly as? Is it like our mayonnaise or honey kind of material?
It is just jelly. It is jelly. That is basically it has been formulated from the pulp of custard apple.
Okay, so what I believe, definitely your material should be non-Newtonian fluid. No chance of having Newtonian fluids. And I believe maybe some portion of elasticity is also present, because if you are able to see jelly, you are able to stretch it just by observation. Correct? And
Okay,
then it will break. So
okay,
definitely it is a non-Newtonian material.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for your nice lecture. Uh, so I would say that this session is over, and we will meet at 1:30 sharp for the next session, in which Dr. Satyavrata Samvedi from IIT Hyderabad will talk on the basics of physical polymer science. So in that we will get the idea of the polymer structures and the all the details related to polymers. So we'll